Today's episode is brought to you by Bernie Williams' 2009 album, Moving Forward, available now on Spotify.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Evans, and joining me today is Kyle Wynn. What's up, buddy?
Oh my gosh! So,
we're gonna get no context to that opener. You just gotta show up.
Oh my god!
If you're looking for a reason to show up to the pre-show or not show up to the pre-show, there it was. You're gonna get stuff
incredibly
like
deep, the deepest of MLB references. Players who haven't played a game in 20 years releasing classical music albums.
We're even like particularly like non-all-star MLB players from 1998. If that's what you're looking for in your podcast, head over to twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast on Monday nights.
Okay. Oh, we're focusing. We're focusing now. Oh my gosh.
At some point we will, at least. Whew,
Yeah,
but
we got so off the rails.
already. Could not possibly be further off, but we're going to get back on train at some point. And thanks again, Kyle, for coming on. Deathblow is sick today, taking the day off, getting some much needed rest before the season. So we got a lot of stuff that's going to be going on during the season. And speaking of things that are going on during the season and also still going on now, last week was the very first week of Foul Play. Foul Play has returned with Hebe and Tepoyama. They are talking all about fantasy Overwatch League play, and they're getting some, I believe they're getting some leagues set up in the Discord. You can go to discord.me/High Noon Podcast for the info on those. If you guys have questions about leagues and strategy and all that stuff, you're definitely going to want to go to Foul Play. You can follow them on their own feed. Just look for Foul Play, or you can search for High Noon Productions, and I believe it shows up as well. Speaking of other High Noon Productions, we also had, of course, Kyle. Wait for it.
The Black Watch Report.
There it is.
What
did you guys talk about
Black
this
Watch
week,
Report. We're just finishing up the amazingly unstreamed Contenders seeding tournament. So we're just like seeing what teams tweet about and kind of trying to analyze matches without actually seeing them. So that's the true challenge.
You know,
it's going to be great.
I can't believe we're going to a place we're regressing back to Overwatch League. We're going back to anything. Like, this was never like Gosu Gamers Weeklies were always streamed. Like, every tournament was always streamed, so it's kind of
it is a bit weird, but it does kind of make sense. So hopefully this is the last day of not actually seeing matches. So I think we should be back soon and crushing it.
Let us hope so. And we will be talking about the teams this week that did not crush it. But before we do that, let's talk about what we did this week. Kyle, anything fun and exciting happened with you over the week?
A lot of game development-y stuff. I had a friend of mine get a job at Riot too, which is super interesting. So I told him to get me one of those Project A early access keys when he can. He's not very confident in it, but I feel like it's happening, so we'll see.
Well, Kyle, people keep, for whatever reason, people keep asking me about that. They're like, "Oh, get me a key." I'm like, I don't work at Riot. But I tell everyone the same thing, that I will get you a key when the game comes out, or even before the game comes out, when we're all about 50 to 60 years old. So
yes, very true.
That's my assumption of when the game's coming out. But again, I have no idea when it's coming out, and I don't work for Riot, and I don't have any sort of professional. You start one podcast, and all of a sudden, people I've had literally 5 or 6
official
people
representative
about it. Yeah, they're like, It's like everyone who knows me from Overwatch is like, oh, you do podcasts for Riot? You work there? Oh, he must work there now. So it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep letting you think that. So forget what I just said. I'm not an employee.
Official employee.
Yeah, I am certainly, and I'm sure that they will be the first ones to say this, even though I would claim to be the first. They are the first ones to say that I am not a spokesperson for them or their company or anything that their company is doing. So, but yes, by the time we're 50 to 60 years old, when the game comes out in 2040, I'll get us all keys. You've got my promise. But yeah, for me this week, to keep on the Riot train this week, Legends of Runeterra open beta starts on Thursday if you pre-registered, and Friday regardless of anything. So if you're looking to play that, I am definitely going to be streaming that on my channel, twitch.tv/theblevins. As well as TFT and all that good stuff that I've been doing, keeping up with that, all still chugging along. We talked a little bit about not Overwatch specifically, but about casting with former Overwatch League caster Doa on my TFT show. So it is pretty heavy TFT. So if you have zero interest in TFT, it might be a little bit tougher of a listen, but if you want to hear about Doa, what he's up to, casting and TFT and all that sort of stuff, it's last week we definitely did talk to him. Was it last week? Yeah, last week. We talked to him and had a really great episode there. So you can definitely check that out. You can just search for TFT on or Teamfight Tactics on Spotify and we will show up. Okay. Let's move on here. Whoops, wrong button. Let's move on here and let's go through some news. Okay, I think that the drops are actually working now. I fixed them afterwards, so if they're not working, if you don't after right now,
it's news.
If you didn't hear that sound, let me know on Discord. I'm pretty sure you did because I saw the levels go up.
I checked it and we're good.
Okay, we're good. So don't message me, because if you do message me now saying you didn't hear it, I know that you are either deaf or you're messing with me, or both. Could certainly be both. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of news. First piece here is a bit of Houston Outlaws news. CoolMatt69 has retired from Overwatch and is moving to a new role in the org. Talked about this one for a while. Deathblow has always been a fan of CoolMatt for a very, very long time. This is showing my my esports boomer brain now. I'm pretty sure we've had him on the show like a long time ago. It was definitely pre-Overwatch League. Okay, Kyle can confirm.
I remember he mentioned the game Brink, and I was like, dude, I played that game a little bit, and he tried to go pro in it, but then the game exploded. So like, I very vividly remember that one conversation. Okay. So it for sure happened.
I'm pretty sure I remember Deathblow either on air or off air pleading with him not to go to Boston. This was like before signings were announced, but like teams were starting to. Like team names and stuff were starting to get out, and like we knew that there was Boston, they were the Kraft group, and I just remember Deathblow being like, dude, you're one of my favorite players of all time. I will follow you, but I can't follow you if you go to Boston, please.
September 2017.
Wow.
Is when you had him. Episode 82. I Googled it because I was curious.
Wow.
So that was a while ago, man. That was what, 100 episodes
ago?
Over
100 episodes ago, man. Wow. Wow is all I have to say to that. So yes, confirmed that I did do an interview with CoolMatt, even though my old aging decaying brain is barely remembering it. So check out episode 82 if you want to hear our interview with CoolMatt, who's now moving to a new role in the org. And Kyle, I mean, what do you think about this one? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit on the show.
Yeah, this is the weird one because I think the fact that he's moving on isn't extremely ridiculous. Like, he was by far like the oldest player in the league. I think he's like 28, which, you know, as official esports grandpa status, But it was good that he was able to like
that old, okay? I mean, he is that old, but that 28 and 29 is not that old. I'm just putting.
Well, no, not in the not the grand scheme of things. But I think what's more interesting for me is like the background story behind, like, we needed to get a little bit more roster cap because, or not more, like we at the roster cap, money wise, I think specifically. And Coolmat's like, I will step down so y'all can hire Jexay and bring him on because we want to win. Like that was essentially what Flame said in his kind of tweet chain about this move. And so I thought that that was especially like pretty valiant, which I can't say that word on this anymore and not make a meme out of it, but like it was like a cool thing for him to do. It was a cool Matt thing for him to do.
I was gonna say he is the cool
I'm
Matt.
just layering the puns here, man. Jesus. But I think it was about time. Like he was not one of like the top half off tanks. There's lots of new players that can. They just picked up Mecco. Like, is he gonna play against
starting
Mecco?
over Mecco? Come on.
Like, I'm still surprised Spree is here because maybe if we do the Zarya thing again, I don't know. Like, I think it's for the best. I'm wondering if it's a coach thing or a streamer thing or like admin. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's like got a accounting background. He's going to handle the books.
He's actually got a degree in finance and is just doing a completely unrelated thing in the organization.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, for his perspective, this has probably got to be the best of both worlds, right? Like he gets to, because like not everyone who's gotten cut or retired or left is still involved in esports, right? Like there's plenty of players who we're not going to hear from again, and as sad as that sounds, like players who didn't make it, and in 3 years we're gonna be like, oh yeah, that guy, I remember that guy played Overwatch, right? And it's gonna be completely unrelated, right? So he gets to stay in the org, he gets to keep a job, not playing at the top of the league anymore, but that's he had a really good run, I think, and as someone who is roughly the same age as him, obviously I didn't have the same path as he did, but you get to be at that top level, and even if maybe he envisioned himself playing longer, I know just from where I am at this roughly the same age, it's like, yeah, you don't necessarily want to be on that grind and doing all that as much anymore. Maybe you want to, I don't know. Good on him, I think, overall, especially like he gets to stay with the team. He gets to stay with the people he knows and that are his friends, and that whole community is still there, and he's going to be able to help the team in a way that maybe he couldn't even do as a player. And then also sacrificing the roster cap space is an added, very, very cool Matt thing to do. So I think probably a win-win for everyone. And hopefully hopefully he's not just in a cubicle in the Outlaws offices. Hopefully we'll get to see or hear from him a little bit, but we'll see. All right, next piece of news here. I'm just going to run through a bunch of these roster changes, and then there's one last one, or roster additions and subtractions here, and then there's one last one that we'll talk about separately. But, okay, so we've got Coldest and what I'm guessing is Mika or M1K, M1K, it's probably Mika, have joined the Hangzhou Spark. KSP has joined the LA Valiant. Envy has been released from the Shanghai Dragons. Fearless has joined the Shanghai Dragons. Excuse me. And Creed has joined the Guangzhou Charge as an assistant coach. Do any of these jump out to you as crazy or interesting or exciting, Kyle?
So Coldest and Mika is kind of just an interesting one. I don't really pay much attention to Chinese contenders, but they just kind of directly called up two players behind their already solid support line. I don't know if we'll see them too much. Not a big deal. KSP, though, this is a big pickup for the Valiant, who are like at the bottom of the standings for a lot of people.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people don't really quite know how good this dude is. Depending on how the season goes, he could be, I don't think he will actually be the Rookie of the Year, but he could be a name that is brought up. Depending on how it goes, I feel like it is
franchise
within the
player?
realm of possibilities that he becomes. I would hope so. He is a phenomenal player and has been putting up numbers for the longest time. I'm excited. I don't think this kicks them up like more than a spot or two, but it does kick them up a spot. And like being a player that can single-handedly, just by existing on a team, raise them a mental spot in your power rankings, I feel like it's pretty good.
You definitely are you're grasping for something here if you're an LA Valiant fan after a very lackluster is not even the right word, just actively bad offseason.
Yeah.
In terms of drops and their whole, playing the money ball type thing. You don't want to see that. You want to have some glimmer of hope. And if you have, if you're we've talked about it on the show before. If you've got, you don't necessarily need to be. You don't need to be we're going to be the 2020 champions right now. You don't need that in order to have your fan base behind you, but you do need to show something, right? You need to show we need to see either something that we're investing in, some sort of potential improvement going on, something that we want. Like we need something to grasp onto, and like not every team is going to win this year, right? So you need something, and maybe this is that something for LA Valiant.
I certainly think so. I think it's it could be interesting. I think some people are going to sleep on him, and I hope it turns out well for him. Envy and Fearless, it's interesting him coming back, but I think the main thing I find fascinating is that Envy, after announcing his retirement, we got the salty silk thread tweet that said "good riddance." Oh,
wow.
Because they played together on the LA Valiant, speaking of the Valiant, and also Baroy mentioned on Tactical Crouch that like when they had some locker room issues, they traded away Envy to the Dragons to try to help with some of those problems. He didn't exactly state it like that, but it's kind of clear that Envy was not the best teammate, and I think that it was a surprise that he lasted almost 3 years in the scene, well, not being a good teammate I was going to say,
not a good teammate, but was a pretty good player.
Yeah, he was fine. Pretty good on Valiant until he got replaced by Space.
Right. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. You have to have some serious vitriol against a player or for a player. I'm probably using that word wrong. You need to really be upset or have been upset by a player to like publicly be like good riddance that they're retired.
Yeah.
While you're still on it,
like a year and a half, almost two. Actually, no, wait, almost 2 full years after you had played together.
I don't even want to know. I mean, actually, I kind of do really want to know now that I think about it. Like, is he just an asshole? Is he like I mean, I can imagine people who I would like say that about, but I just like when I'm on a team and like, what are you trying to do? Like, you're trying to vent or something? Like, just keep that to yourself, man. Like, that's the type of thing where like, again, maybe this is just a difference in how I would want to run a team, but I'm like, you keep that crap in the locker room. If something happens, like you're not a soundboard to comment on all that stuff. Maybe it's just a traditional sports bet, like that PR thing, but like that's the type of stuff that gets you in trouble. Because like, what if he chirps back, and then like what if like you start airing dirty laundry and no one looks good, right? Like that's the type of thing that I just if Silk Thread was my player, I'd be having a conversation with them. Like. You need to keep that crap to yourself, and if you have something to air to him, say it to him in person. You can't even message him directly because that all gets aired too. Say it to him in person, or just shut up.
Yeah, and I think he does have like the backup. Like he's not in the Overwatch scene anymore, so it's like not like he can even burn a bridge that would destroy his ability to get back on. Like he's not. I think he may occasionally stream, but like he's I think playing Apex and. Yeah, that is the weird thing about esports is like you just change sports
That is
I'm
true.
gonna swap real quick and then completely abandon everyone. And if you
Everyone can be
hate people or
a
if you
Deion Sanders
burned
or
bridges in the scene, yeah.
Who else was it? Deion Sanders and
Jim Thorpe played a bunch of different
Jim
sports at one point.
Thorpe. I'm thinking of
Michael Jordan too. Tried to.
well, before I dig myself any more holes in the 1990s era professional sports scene.
It always goes back.
Yeah, the last piece of news here is an interesting one in that it's kind of sad that this is the. I mean, I think this is cool. I want to preface this with this is cool, but the fact that this is like the biggest piece of news that we've really had to sink our teeth into in regards to the league as a whole. I mean, there's been roster moves and changes and a little bits of drama here and there, and people calling about the downfall of the league, all that stuff that we've been dealing with over the past couple months. But when the fact that the Overwatch League crossover with Staple Pigeon, the streetwear brand, is the biggest piece of league news that we've had in weeks, it's kind of sad, right? Like there's no engine. I feel like there should be some sort of news cycle marketing engine keeping us, keeping content out about the league going, like not I don't know. Regardless of that fact, I do think we've seen a couple of the jerseys. I think we saw a Defiant jersey and NYXL jersey, a Rain jersey, and a Philly one, maybe. I don't remember.
We got Gladiator, Shock, Rain, New York, and then this article does show Eternals, which are pretty good, and then Dynasties, which are pretty sick. So I
definitely saw Toronto.
And Malik's got the Spark one too. I saw that.
I 100% saw Toronto.
You saw Toronto? I've yet to see Toronto one.
Interesting. I'm pretty sure Deathblow sent me Toronto. It was in some article, I think. Regardless,
secret connection.
The notable thing here is that they look like a streetwear t-shirt, not a soccer jersey like the old ones did. Taking a little bit of a different approach to an esports jersey. It's a collab with a streetwear brand. It's not done through Fanatics, which I know a lot of people had a lot of people gave a lot of guff about, or a lot of pushback about Fanatics. And I gotta say, the jerseys specifically, if I'm talking about specifically the jersey that I got two actually. I got a Toronto Defiant one and a Florida Mayhem alternate color jersey, and both of those jerseys are great, and honestly way better than the one I got from season 1, which was a first run NYXL one, not the game authentic one or whatever. Remember how they had like the first ones and then they had like the game authentic jerseys that were like $20 more, but they came out later or whatever.
Yeah, I got the first run as well, and they were pretty solid. I don't know about solid.
It was like okay, but like week 1, like before it even got washed, it had like tears and frills in like it had like loose threads on the jersey. And it's like, okay, well, I paid like $60 or whatever for this, $40 to $60 for this shirt, which already, I mean,
right. It's an expensive shirt.
They're expensive shirts, which I mean, I personally have no problem because I like the stuff. I like sports stuff. I mean, a sports jersey is going to be that much, which I mean, maybe speaks to the climate of what sports jerseys cost, but I'm conditioned at least to accept that price. And I have, some disposable income to be able to buy nice stuff like that. But like, I don't want to be paying that much money for a shirt and then have it be crappy. Like, I'll pay the money, but I want a nice shirt. So I don't know. I don't know if we know how much these Staple Pigeon shirts are going to be.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna be cheap.
They're
I
not going to be
don't.
cheap. I can tell you. I can tell you that they're not going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. I think I randomly have a Staple Pigeon shirt that is unrelated to Overwatch League. It's just like a gray Staple Pigeon shirt that I got in like one of those stupid like fashion boxes. You know those like
Mm. Oh yeah, the little crates.
the crate. I got a crate of like clothes because I'm like I want to get some new clothes, but I don't know what I want to get, so I'll just do one of these for a month. Or actually, I think I did 2 months. It was all right. And I got a Staple Pigeon shirt, and I like that shirt. It's a nice quality, but it's like but the thing is, it's like a t-shirt. It is a t-shirt. It's a nice quality cotton t-shirt.
Yeah, these these say they're specifically new kits utilize elevated pin dot mesh fabric to create lightweight and breathable jerseys to balance and
Okay.
regulate players' temperature. And also, this is the most interesting thing that I am like, that makes sense. I'm kind of a fan of this. Is that the kit includes short sleeve jersey, long sleeve jersey, jackets, compression sleeves, hats, and beanies. So
Oh,
you've got.
nice.
They also have. Did they mention the pants? They didn't mention the pants. They have
Oh,
pants
so the
too. Like
collection
you
is
can
going to be
see.
more than the jersey.
It's a whole kind of thing, which I appreciate because I hate
Okay,
like
I
having
like
to
that
see
a lot,
players
actually.
just like freezing cold on stage in their
Oh,
jerseys
yeah.
and like they can't wear like a branded sweatshirt or whatever.
Well, they wear it underneath, and it looks stupid.
Yeah. And so now they can just wear a long sleeve shirt like Space has in this picture, but like you've also got the pants that match. It's not just weird, awkward sweatpants. Like they're kind of like
And the hat
joggers esque.
and the okay. I'm in on this.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
even
do
realize that it was a
appreciate
whole
the
collection. That's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, I'm in on
Like the
that.
logos themselves are cool too. Like they're pretty nice and uniform. There's like uniform aesthetics between each jersey, yet they still maintain their individuality.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. Like it's just it's pretty sick. It looks more jersey than like a t-shirt, but it still
Yeah.
is kind of casual and like
Yeah.
they're not like a basketball jersey with no sleeves and
Right.
like it's just like it's for playing games at a computer.
Right. Well, because like uh, a soccer jersey is kind of just like a shirt, right? But it had like a look, and I think a lot of
Right.
teams adopted that because soccer is so popular around the world, and it just made sense. You can fit sponsors and stuff on there, and it just makes sense. Probably relatively cheap to make those too.
Yeah.
And they're people are used to. The other thing is that people are used to paying a certain amount of money for this fabric with team logo and et cetera on it. So it made a lot of sense for esports to adopt that inherently. But, a basketball jersey looks and is the way that it is to fit some sort of function. A football jersey is different because you need pads and stuff in it. A hockey jersey looks even more different and is thicker and all those sorts of things because you're playing on ice and pads and all that. So why not have the same sort of philosophy for an esports jersey? What do you need? Well, you don't really need anything, right? So
you need to not have your arms completely constricted.
Right.
And that's about it.
You need to be comfortable because you're doing so and you want to look good doing it. So
Exactly.
I'm in. I did not realize that there was the whole collection behind it. Knowing that, I'm actually super in on this. I like the whole I hope that they're like I wanted I low key kind of hope that they don't do this because I do want to be able to eat this season, but I kind of also hope that they have hats that have the team logo, but the pigeon, like how the teams did the pigeon thing, and like I think the actual just Overwatch League crossover with Staple Pigeon, like with the pigeon with the Overwatch League brand inside the pigeon. I think that looks awesome. I'm almost certainly going to get something with that. But like if they had the teams that had like the pigeon as the hat and then like the team logo in the pigeon, ooh man, I can already feel the money burning out of my pocket. But yeah, I'm actually super in on this whole thing. If with knowing that now, I'm very much in on it.
I'm too. I think it's sick. I'm definitely, hopefully, maybe, possibly gonna get some.
I'm just like the other thing, and the last thing I'll talk about this is like I like the not quite designer. When you think designer, you think of like Louis Vuitton and
Right.
that's like exorbitant on purpose. We think streetwear, it's like still very expensive, but not like you're not paying $4,000 for a shirt, which you like theoretically could for something like Louis Vuitton. Like it's really dumb. I just want them to be like reasonably affordable. If they're like a little bit more, because it's like the premium thing or whatever, I'm fine with. Like I'm personally fine with it. But like, if you have $300 jerseys, like just don't do that, please, because I like. At the end of the day, you want fans wearing these things. Like, yes, you want to generate money from the sales of these, but you also need people wearing them, or else like it's free advertising, right? Like you show, especially with the home games, right? You show the crowd, everyone's wearing one of these staple pigeon shirts. Oh, that jersey's so awesome. I want the jersey that Raucus is wearing. I want the jersey that that Carpe is wearing. I want that jersey that, oh man, he wears the long sleeve one. I want that long sleeve. Ooh, that head is great. If you go on the website and you see it's $300, it's like, oh well, I'm not buying that. And you don't see anyone in the crowd wearing it. It's like, no, not buying that. It doesn't look like anyone can buy those because they're $300. So we don't know what the price point is on them. I personally will forgive a little bit of a markup compared to the last jerseys because it's the designer. They're cool. They're different. Whatever. But if they go for the money grab and something crazy like that, like they shooting themselves in the foot. But okay, let's move on here and let's actually talk about some teams.
Oh, let's break it down.
Breaking it down. The bottom of the barrel teams here. I believe these are our last 4 teams left in the standings. As we mentioned on the previous episodes, we started at the top and moved our way down in the standings from last year in evaluating these teams. Chengdu, which is who we're going to start with here, is actually out of order. As we mentioned your last episode, the episode before, there were some leaks out that would significantly change the Chengdu roster. We wanted to wait some time and see if those leaks bared any fruit, if they were real or not, so that we could evaluate the team as accurately as possible and as close to what they're going to be at the start of the season. We have gotten no confirmation or denial of those leaks, so we're just going to go ahead as though those leaks are fake, as is our sort of policy with stuff like that. Once it's officially announced, we're more than happy to talk about it, but speculation and whatnot is left to Reddit and Twitter and all that good stuff, which I'm sure you are already in on, so no need for us to go too crazy on that. So we're going to start with Chengdu here and their roster moves as such. They released Jiqiren and Yang Xiaolong. They signed Ating and as well as Molly and Lengsa. Kyle, what do you think about Chengdu's roster moves? Do you know anything from Tier 2 or anything? I know you're not super.
I don't.
This is
like the one region I can't accurately give, because like, okay, even if you look incredible in Chinese contenders, like they don't, like sometimes the best team, like I think in both times we've had international play between contenders teams, the Chinese teams have absolutely folded. And most argue like, okay, no, they weren't the best team, that there was this other team that this happened. Like every single time it just doesn't work out, so it's like become even more impossible to judge talent from this region, because like if you look good against other teams in your region, neat, but like we kind of have an idea of where NA Academy teams and contenders teams place in like the grand scheme of like Overwatch League. Same with Korean contenders, kind of the same way. We can kind of tell like where they would fit.
Sure.
You got to throw the book out for Chinese contenders, and it's so hard to tell. Like, I've heard of A-Ting before, not heard of Molly or Langsa. I don't remember how I heard of A-Ting. Oh, Hong Kong Attitude probably played on the Taiwan team. For is it Taiwan? Yeah, Taiwan for 2018, 2019. So that's probably where we heard of him from the World Cup. But these are hard to tell. This whole team is going to be hard to tell. All I know is that they have another tank player, which is kind of good. I don't remember if A-Ting is. Yeah, he's a main tank player, Reinhardt Winston. So it's not going to be all ball main tank all the time next season, which is good to see. I thought the supports for Chengdu last year were pretty fine, but I think that they could probably do with a bit of an upgrade here, and so hopefully that's what we get. But it's super hard to tell.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing,
this specific team is just impossible to see, honestly.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is a lot of wild card potential here in terms of players. So yeah, I mean a tough one to evaluate, which I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I mean, that's kind of what Chengdu's charm has been, right? They're not easy to pin down. They're playing non-meta comps. They're defining the meta as they so please, and it seemed to work in spurts. Not overall, obviously. They were 13. They had a 13-15 overall record, which earned them the 12th seed, which was the final spot in the play-ins last year. So, I mean, it worked out. I think for a lot of teams, unless you're a top tier team, for a lot of teams, getting into the playoffs, making it to the play-ins rather, for the playoffs is a victory condition for the teams. It's a success condition. Can we get to a record where we can get to the play-ins, and then it's, NCAA March Madness, one shining moment. We can do anything in the playoffs. It's playoffs, baby. We can do whatever we can upset anyone, right? It's getting to that spot, which is, I think, the ultimate, not the ultimate, but the great equalizer in terms of success conditions for teams, and they hit that, getting the 12th seed. But they were under 500, and they had sort of a lackluster map win percentage on a lot of these map types. They had 53% win percentage on control. It was their only positive map type win percentage. 45 on hybrid, 43 on assault, and 34 on escort. A lot of really bad maps as well. Volskaya at 13%, Hanamura at 40%, Havana, Big Fat Donut, 0%.
Oof.
Junkertown 17, Route 66 25, Rialto 33, Busan 40, Ilios 42, Kings Road 25, Eichenwalde 33, and Numbani at 40. So I mean, a lot of losing maps, including the straight up 0, never won on Havana. I
wonder how many times they played that, because I remember Havana wasn't played a ton, so maybe it was like they played it twice, lost twice.
Possible.
Hard to sample size it, but the map ratings here are kind of interesting, but it's kind of very telling of like what their style is. Like, control is very often the most kind of chaotic and deathmatchy, from what at least has been told to me by pros and stuff. And it kind of makes sense. That's where they kind of snuck out a lot of maps. I think they were a big map 5 team last season. I remember they had quite a number of them that all got kind of wacky. So it does make sense that they did slightly bet on control, whereas escort's always been, I guess escort and hybrid always have been the two most, like, you have to play consistently really, really good and like be very well coordinated and have a lot of, like, that one was the least deathmatchy, it seemed.
Yep.
So it does make sense that these are the results.
Yeah, it absolutely does make sense, and consistency was not the name of the game for the Chengdu Hunters. It's considering what we just talked about with the signings, it's at least not something we're thinking inherently is going to happen. But I do think that you learn from that. They can improve their consistency, but they can also improve their strategy in terms of, hey, we aren't, they can realize that they're not going to, like, in some cases, maybe just being ahead, air quotes, of the meta, or just having a different view on the meta. It's not always going to work. They don't have to dig their heels in and do it. They can do it better. They have some shots. They've got some new players. They had a reasonable record last year. If I'm a Chengdu fan, I'm not in too bad a shape. I think, you've reached that success metric, and you've got room to improve. Obviously, we will go into our record predictions. Kyle, we'll start with you. What do you think that they are going to be in the 2020 season?
So it's got a bit weird, right? Because instead of doing it based off of like records previously, I had just done my power rankings, and so I have my power rankings up and ready, and so I had to kind of, from based off of that information, where would these players or where would this team lie?
Sure.
And it had them I had to keep it positive because I have them in the top half. Actually, I have them perfectly at 10 on my power rankings, and so I had to give them about a 15 win, 13 loss predicted record here for the 2020 season. It's a bit weird because this team is super hard to lock down, but I think their boon is that they have incredible DPS, and they seemed to do pretty solid towards the end when their DPS could play like DPS and not have to worry about goats being kind of the mirror into them. And so I think that this could be pretty good for them. I think one of the things that was unfortunate is that they did lose their head coach for the predicted to be for the season, but in November, I think. But then they recently brought in a co-head coach situation with Ray and Dokubai, which is, I don't know how that's gonna go. That's very odd.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see if it can work.
I can see head coach, assistant coach, yes, but co-head coach, that's interesting.
Yeah, they did announce that on the 14th, so this is a pretty recent change. But as well, like they don't have the most homestands, which is kind of unfortunate, but they are the only purely like mostly Chinese team, or I guess Taiwan, which is essentially pretty close to China. So you've got that kind of like hometown hero-y thing. So when you are at home, you are from the country that your home is playing in, and so I think they have a decent stint in China playing a lot of matches there, and so they're used to their home food, they're used to their home area, and like they won't be as like affected by the travel as much, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. That made me think of is, if you're a Korean player, Chinese player, even a European player, you've had 2 seasons, if you've been in the league, you've had 2 seasons of playing in the U.S. So you've got a lot of that out of your system. You're at least somewhat acclimated to how things are in the U.S., how the food is. If you've been here for 2 years, you've got at least some understanding and are used to that. And then when you travel back, if you're from China in this case, it's a free roll, right? Yeah, obviously, if you grew up there, that's going to feel even more at home. So when you're playing in the U.S., which is going to be a lot, you're at where you were before, and then you get a boon when you go back. For U.S. players, you're the same, and then you actually, when you travel, you get much worse, right? Because you're acclimating in the same ways, or probably in a worse way than the non-US or NA players have been, because like you're going there for a week or a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right?
Speaking of, so this is wild. They don't play outside of their home country until week 9.
Wow.
So they spend week 2, week 3, week 4 playing in Shanghai, Hangzhou, Chengdu. Then week 9, they end up going to Dallas and then San Francisco in April.
Wow.
So like that is a long time
That's
to be
an
just chilling. And they also have 22, 23, 25. Like they start with what, 7 weeks at home ish,
Yeah.
and then they end with 5 weeks at home, 4 weeks at home. So they have a pretty nice. I know that Yiska put out this article about like teams that have big random advantages based off of map statistics or like geographic statistics of traveling and playing against teams that only are preparing against you specifically. And I think that was pretty good for them as well. So there's a lot of like dig deep into this, and you can figure out like where their advantages are. So I think this could be quite interesting.
Yeah, I think given a lot of those factors, and I honestly didn't even think about the other thing, like the non-NA players kind of have an advantage this season in a way, if you can think of it like that. At least in traveling. I kind of like this. I actually was gonna have them pretty low. I was actually gonna have them similar to what they were last year, but I think I'm actually going to do you one better here, Kyle, and give them a 16 and 12. I'm gonna bet on the wild cards here. I do think, like you said, I think the GOAT's style of meta has gotten so much flack over the years. I don't think that we're going to be going back towards something like that. I think the criticism or the feedback from players is that they don't want that. They don't like shields. They want something more like a traditional FPS, and I think that favors Chengdu at least on the surface. So we will go with that. Okay, let's move on and talk about the Washington Justice. So we start with they re-signed Corey, one of their biggest players from last year. They released Sansam, Ado, Hyunyu, and Janice. Good riddance. See, there's me tweeting out the good riddance. There was a player that I have vitriol for, and I'm willing to take the flack on Twitter for saying that. So, in all honesty, I wish him no ill will. He was a perfectly fine player. I just hated that he threw for my team, the NYXL. They released Guido and Sleepy. They re-signed Stratus. They signed Roar. Signed Tatuba, re-signed Arc, and signed Aim God. So a lot of re-signings. So I think they in my mind they re-signed the strengths of their roster and cut a lot of the players who were either statistically not great or were just not vibing with the rest of the team. I mean, I think they, Corey was the centerpiece of this team, at least in the later half of the season. And it kind of seems like they want to build around him.
Yeah, I mean, these re-signs are pretty expected. Like, we kind of knew where their dead weight was, and we kind of knew where their best players were, and like they kind of did the right moves there, which is really good. It's just kind of what they brought in as their replacements that I felt was like fine at best. Like Roar was fine, but like he had a really big challenge kind of keeping up with the rest of like the top tier main tank. He wasn't a bad main tank, but he definitely was like very clearly out of that top level discussion. Tuba is a player that I like. That is a name that I don't recall in a long time. Like I remember seeing him in a match like Apex Season 2 maybe, and I haven't heard much from beyond that. Like I know he's been playing, but I think he's been like bottom of contenders, if not in trials, with his previous teams. And then Aim God, I think we should still like. I remember towards the end of Season 1, we were all like, Aim God's super duper good. He's better than Neko. Neko was like top 5. And then Season 2 happened, and there was like this shenanigans happening between him and Kellex. That we don't know of what happened. All we knew is that him and Kellex were never on stage together ever again. And so there's still huge potential for him to be an incredible player, but it's like we don't know what's happened the last year.
Yeah, definitely a question mark to say the least. And their season was kind of a question mark last year.
there's some room for improvement here.
Definitely some room for improvement, but did show some of that improvement late in the season, which I guess is a good place to show it if you're going to show it at all.
As soon as you get to play DPS, you do really well with
Right.
the same format that you will have now. Like, okay.
Yeah. They finished the year at 8-20, which was good for 18th place out of 20 teams.
Like 6 of those wins were in the last stage too. So
yeah, so not a great first 3 quarters of the season, but they did finish it out strong, I suppose. They had a 41% win rate on assault, 39% win rate on control, 32 on escort, and 30 on hybrid. And instead of listing out your losing maps, we're going to save ourselves the time and tell you the winning maps, which were Ilios at 75% and Blizzard World at 60%, which is interesting that they had Ilios win rate of 75%, but their control win rate was still 39%.
So they must be really bad at Busan and Liu Zhang, and that's real bad.
Not the best for the Washington Justice here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard to, you know, in a way, like with other teams we talked about, they've changed their whole roster up. This is not the case for this team, but in a lot of ways, these results are, they're somewhat skewed low because they did so poorly in the first 3 quarters of the season. They showed a lot of improvement, and though they weren't technically a new team, they looked like a new team in a lot of ways. They showed flashes of being able to be good. That, I think, is important to me. Now, it doesn't immediately give me all the confidence in the world that they're going to be an amazing team, but I do think that these numbers speak a little bit lower on the team than maybe they should. That being said, Kyle, where do you have them?
So this is a team that I don't think anyone is supposed to go. I wanted to check this to see if, like, am I crazy, or like, I have them up a little bit. I have them placement wise at 16, so they got 2 spaces up from last year. I have a 12 and 16 as their record.
Okay.
But like, I've been looking at this, and like, Avast has them at 7. Platchat has them at like 10.
Huh.
So like, I think that it's so hard to tell. I think their main boon is that they are a team with 5 homestands, and like one of the weakest distances to travel as well that could come into consideration. I think that their DPS line is lacking a lot of variety. They just have Corey and Stratus mostly at this point, and then their tank line is a little bit sketchy. So what you got for one?
I think I forgot that they have 5 homestands, which is crazy. I think I'm gonna give them a flat even record. Give me 14 and 14 for the Washington Justice. I do have more. Again, I've been hedging more on success, which, I mean, doesn't actually make sense. If I make everyone more successful, it's like no one is, right? So it's really not moving much up. But I do think that Washington does have that opportunity. I mean, not only do you just have the in the one game, or in the moment home game advantage of being when you're in Washington, but if you string those wins together, you build up some momentum. Teams are looking at you differently. You're playing differently. You're playing better. You win. Winning begets winning. Even if it's not, if it doesn't on paper make sense that way, it can be good. So they really, I mean, they just need to string some stuff together between these homestands and really perform at homestands, and they can put together a real season and make a run at the play-ins potentially. I mean, they've got a lot of room to jump up, especially like you said, you had them bumped up 2 spots. I think there's, there's a lot of teams that I see not going up and potentially could be going way down. I could see the Justice jumping up, 3-4 spots. I think it's possible. So give me 14 and 14 for them. And yeah, I'm a little bit I'm a bit more bullish on the Justice than I was thinking I was going to be, but here we are. Okay, let's move on to our next team, and this team is now explaining to me why Deathball may have been sick. He just didn't want to talk about this team. It is the Boston Uprising. They released Kellex, Aimgod, Alamau, RCK, Persia, and Stellar. As is tradition in the Boston Uprising cleaning house. They then traded Blase to Houston. They signed Myungbong. They signed Jerry. They signed Swimmer and Muffin. They also signed Munchkin as well as Brussin. So a lot of movement here. I mean, Kyle, I'll leave it to you to tell us about some of these players, because I mean, I recognize Swimmer because I stood in line behind him at the grand finals at the Mitchell and Ness event, where I was in a photo shoot with Aspen. But besides that, I know he's a player, but
yeah, this is a wild team. I think so. I'm just mad that they just got rid of one of their best players, but if they went to Houston, okay, sure, why not? So I thought Blase was. I will never not like Stan Blase. I think he is severely underrated and has just infinite potential to be absolutely incredible. And so they lost him, so sucks for them. Myungbong was a pretty big pickup. Everyone's like, how did they get this guy? And like, I think they just got him an offer first and like trialed. Like, I think they actually trialed him, and then got him an offer pretty quick along. So that was a huge deal. Jerry, no one knows anything about Jerry, but it's a great name.
Jerry.
It's a shame we don't have Gary playing anymore because he's to a coaching spot.
Yep.
So we just have Jerry. It's a great name. And then Swimmer. Boston loved to just have players on their academy team and bring them up, even though like their academy team sucks. Their academy team every year is consistently like bottom like 4 in contenders every year, and yet they keep pulling people up. So it's clearly not that like all of the players suck. It's just that their coaching and or coordination sucks. Swimmer is an interesting one. I don't know how to feel about him. Like, I think he's fine. Like, they literally only have him as support, so he has to be good. Like, there's no, well, if you don't do great, we still have Kellex. No, they got rid of Kellex. Like, they all are all-inning him. He looked fine. He looks very motivated and seems like he's a pretty solid player, but it was hard to tell when the rest of his team was just floundering around him. Muffin, I don't think we see too much of him. He's sitting behind, who is he sitting behind in this tank line here? Wait, or is he?
I'm trying to think because
there's not.
I'm forgetting the the roster for Boston.
There's Axiom Fusions and Brucin. Brucin is the non two-way. I thought he was a main tank, but no, he's an off tank. Comes from Angry Titans. I think he's pretty solid. I think Brucin might start above Muffin. I think Muffin's gonna mostly play tier 2 stuff. And then Munchkin's a weird one. I feel like Munchkin was kind of past his prime, and it's just like he was kind of underwhelming on Soul. I think it's just like a retirement home situation for him. So I don't know how I see this going. This is a bit rough.
I mean, is the part of the Moneyball equation is having the veteran that you get super cheap, right? That you might be able to get more value than their ticket price out of. So, I mean, that could be that part of it. I mean, I don't put anything past the Galaxy Brain of Huck, right? Like even though last year they had an 8-20 record, which was second to last in the league. They looked super lackluster the entirety of the year. But he made something out of nothing, right? In season 1, had, I think, one of the, if not the most surprising performance of any team in a stage, which was Boston. I mean, throughout the whole year, honestly, or at least a lot of the year, they had the perfect regular stage, which they still lost in the stage playoffs to Max, by the way. But they had the perfect regular stage, and out of a team that literally 90+% of the people had Boston as their dead last team in the power rankings. Like, they beat everyone that stage. No one was guessing that. So Huck has the ability to do that, or see something that we don't see. I mean, they picked up Stryker, who was one of the best players in the league in season 1, kind of out of nowhere, and I don't put that past him to be able to do that. Now, we've also seen that he can flop too.
But like, the problem is he picks, like, the spotting of good talent is one thing. Like, there was, I mean, specifically with like Blase, he was a fantastic talent, just couldn't be used right. The team sucked. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he was able to find the talent, but like being able to work with the talent, like he needed Krusty for that. Like,
Right.
he was able to spot this talent, and then as soon as Krusty left, there was like nothing good that really came of these teams.
So they need a coach. They need a good coach.
Yeah, and so now they have Mineral. I think when did they bring Mineral in?
Oh, right, they do have Mineral.
September. So after
the Florida Mayhem.
Yeah,
We've also had on the show before. And I think randomly is our most downloaded episode of all time.
That's very specific and odd.
It is. It like it's like not particularly close either. It's like by a lot.
But like Mineral has not had a great run as a coach.
Sure.
And I don't think that's necessarily all his fault.
Right.
I mean, Florida Mayhem was a disaster that nothing could have saved. This is, I guess, the year of him to prove otherwise. Like, this is his shot. Like, he got to build this roster. This is his roster. I mean, Huck obviously had a significant hand in there, I believe, but like, I'm pretty sure he gets the onus on this one. Like, this is his creation, so I don't know how to feel about it. I don't think this is the best roster they can come up with. This is not. The main tank spot just kind of off tank spot DPS, like, Color Hex is pretty good. There's Jerry and Munchkin, like,
yeah. I mean, I'm feeling you, and on paper, at first glance, I feel exactly the same way. I just
they don't also have a bunch of homestands either. Like, they're traveling a decent amount.
They have a lot of things going against them. I just keep going back to literally every single person. Not literally everyone. 90+% of people had Boston dead last in the power rankings for season 1. They broke all of those expectations. So that doesn't mean that they necessarily are going to do that every time, but it gives me the thought that they can do that.
I think, though, the 2019 we had them ranked a little bit higher because we gave them that benefit of the doubt, and instead they did the exact opposite, and now like they went 8-20 at 19th
so you think
position.
They
like
lose that benefit?
I think it's just like they went up and we underrated them, and they went down because we overrated them, and now they're just like, boom, we're rating them.
Right. Oh, that's fair. To give a little more context before we go into our anticipated record, like we said, 8-20 last year was good for 19th. 38% win rate on hybrid, 36 on escort, 34 on assault, and 29 on control. Again, Boston doing us the favor. We can just list the winning maps. Rialto 60%, Eichenwalde 60%, and Numbani at 60%. That is bad.
As winning maps, 60 is. I mean, Washington had a 75% on it.
Right. Boston had no specialty or expertise anymore. So all that being said, Kyle, where do you have them in 2020?
I have them on my power rankings dead last. I have them at about 7-21. I think 8-20 is their like peak. Like 8 wins. I think they don't get more than 8 wins in the season with this roster.
I'm just trying to think
of
where they steal those 6. Who they steal those 6 wins from?
I think you maybe get a couple back-to-backs from like a Florida or a Dallas or a Valiant
there's
or
the 2
something.
wins. I'm thinking, okay, Valiant. Okay, there's 2 more, so there's 4 wins. We're still only halfway there.
Paris Eternal pre-Sparkle aging in when they're still running Nico at the flex DPS line.
Okay.
London before they mesh with the whole new roster. There's a lot of opportunity for sneaking the stuff out, but like
they need to come out hot, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they need to have a bomb of a first season of like a first half, or else this team is gonna be in the dumpster.
I mean, is it bad for me to pick them 0 wins? Is that a dumb thing?
I don't think it's a dumb thing.
I think
it's not. It is not a dumb. It's probably not a great thing.
Right.
It's statistically quite difficult to do.
Right. I agree.
But I wouldn't say you're dumb for that.
But you'd sure be thinking it. I think I'm on board with what you said. I'm not airing. I need to make up some of this, like giving people too much credit. I need to take a little bit of credit away. I'm going to give them 5-23 because I don't like. Okay, I'll give you 2. I'll give you 2 to Florida. I'll give you 2 to LA. LA Valiant, and I'll give you a 1 to either Paris or maybe London. I'm not buying London, honestly, even though they're a completely new team. I still have more faith in them.
I don't dispute that.
So I'm feeling 5 here. So give me 5-23. Obviously, they have the ability to steal some somewhere else. They have the ability to completely make me look stupid, and be a playable team. I'm fine with that. I have no ill will towards Boston like Deathblow does. But yeah, call it here now. And once Boston gets their 6th win, sure someone will point it out in Discord and call me an idiot, and I will I'll congratulate them for pointing that out because it's a deep cut. Okay. Last one here in our preseason preview here for these teams is, of course, the dead last team, the Florida Mayhem. The team with all the talent and none of the execution, aka the Cleveland Browns. Sorry, Thorne. Deathblow wrote it in the notes that I had to make a Cleveland Browns joke, so I had to honor his spirit wherever he may be. He's at his house. Florida Mayhem released Hagopian, Swan, Zephyr, DPI, and Rain. They also signed Yaki and Gang Namjin.
So, statistically speaking,
okay,
in terms of like pound for pound potential of player they signed, like out of all of the players, the percentage of good players, they picked up 100% great players.
Okay.
They signed 2, though. There's only 2. And so, like, Yaki was the flex DPS for Runaway, who had a really great season. They did not do incredibly in Gauntlet, but I don't think that was necessary because they were bad. I think they got beat by Atlanta, who then went pretty close against Element Mystic. So it was pretty close in the Gauntlet. So Yaki specifically played a lot of Doomfist, really, really good. Gangnam Jin, I believe, is their flex support. I will never not get those 2 names mixed up. Let me figure this out here. I don't want to be wrong. Yes, he's the flex support. Anna Zen. Dude was sick. And so, like, just simply speaking, they had a fantastic pickup offseason. But the fact that is it, they only signed the 2, and they still have Gargoyle, Carrion, Byram, Fate, BQB, and Chris, and then Saya, who Saya's fine. It's just kind of hard to, like, half of this roster is going to be fighting the other half for, like, not failing. I think Gangnam Jin, Yaki, and I think Fate is still pretty solid.
Yeah.
And I think Saya player, if we get like a double sniper meta, this team could be sick. But like BQB, I'm kind of questioning. Gargoyle was okay. Carrion, I don't remember anything about him. Chris was not great, I don't think. Like this is brutal. Like if they picked up more of Runaway, I think they were trying to go for one more player.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I think if they got that one more player, I'd bring him up like another position or two in my rankings. But like, it's so hard to tell because like they brought in such good players, but like, if you put Kobe beef into a disgusting stew, like, what does that get you? It's just like, it doesn't fix it.
Yeah, I mean, Florida since the beginning, honestly, because I mean, the old Misfits roster didn't end up panning out in terms of success at all. After they hit LAN, I mean, they were cursed from the second they hit the stage, even in old contenders. They still, going into it, had potential, right? Like Misfits for a while was, they were, a lot of the players were on Rogue or Giganti at one point. I think some of them were. I'm mixing up my Overwatch history, but like they had potential.
A couple, yeah.
Even at points, the players from Florida last year, like they made a lot of changes. They brought in Fate, they brought in a lot of these players and made, on paper improvements. Didn't work. Didn't matter. The potential never was lived up to. If I recall correctly, they've got some new coaching. If maybe it was from last.
They brought in Coach Kookie.
Yes.
The best main support LA Valiant will ever see. But he was the head coach of Runaway, I think, for the second contender season, and they did pretty solid.
So,
and they have our boy in there, who I thought pretty solid. He built a lot of great teams. He built the second NRG roster that had Stratus and Butcher or Swan and a couple other. I think like the roster that he made was like one of the best ones. Oh yeah, it had Rascal on it, Fozix, Rob Dab, Hello I'm Halo. Pretty good roster. Like he's built a couple of really, really solid rosters. So
I mean, the point is, Florida has rarely been at the onset. They've rarely been a lackluster team on paper in terms of potential. They've rarely been that. They've even more rarely been able to perform and win. 6-22 was dead last. Just bad. Again, saving us the time on the winning maps. Route 66, 70%, Rialto 60%, Hanamura 83%.
Maybe they played it 3 times and what? I guess that would have to be
much better winning map spread than Boston did last year, surprisingly enough. It's hard because on the one hand, you see a roster, you evaluate it for what it looks like, right? That's all we can do. And every time we've done that, at least I have been wrong. I've always overestimated them. They've always come up short every single time. But they keep looking decent on paper. I keep having to do that. On the other hand, like you see that they never live up to expectations. So why do I do this? I'm torn here. I want to give them more wins. I want to give them. I'm definitely giving them more wins than Boston. That's for sure. But I want to push them up towards an LA Valiant, a falling London Spitfire, a Paris Eternal. I want to push them up towards those teams. I don't know if I can. I think. Who did I have? Who did we do earlier? Well, we had Washington Justice. I'm not as bullish on Mayhem as I am on Justice, so I think I'm going to give them a 11-17 record on the year. It's better than Boston.
That's a pretty decent improvement.
Yeah, I don't think it's better than anyone else in my my rankings.
That's enough for like what, 14th ish.
It might be. Again, the ranking,
That's pretty good.
The rankings that I've given in these last weeks are not. They're independent of each other, so the numbers probably almost certainly don't add up because I've been very much on the front end. I'm just trying to. That'd be 14th, so there'd have to be 6 teams behind them. That might be too much. Maybe I'll give them 10 and 18 is, I guess, what I'll put them. Still probably a little bit higher than they should be, but 10 and 18, nice round number there for them. Kyle, what do you have?
I got them with the, what do I have them? 8 and 20. So a little bit worse off than you. I still have them in my power rankings at 19th. Basically, them and Boston did the old flip flop.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell with this roster. I really don't have a ton of faith in them.
Yeah.
You can pick up 2 great players, but you still have a whole roster of just kind of not great players.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I'm not keen on them.
I'm still low key. I mean, here's the other thing, Kyle. New jerseys. They got new jerseys, new colors.
That is true. The rebrand was probably the best thing they did in this offseason.
It was definitely the best thing they did in this offseason. The rebrand is real.
Yeah. They had a great offseason, but that doesn't mean they're going to have a great season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're making moves, which is the first step, right? They just need to execute on those. But speaking of execution, we can execute the end of the show. Kyle, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I always love coming on.
It's always
being the substitute death blow.
It's always great to have you on, man. Always a different take on a lot of this stuff, and of course, the in-depth and encyclopedic knowledge of Tier 2 is always helpful, especially in these trying times in our off-season for Overwatch League, which is rapidly approaching. I mean, we're what, 2 or 3 weeks out now, I think? 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I don't know. I forget what the actual date is.
I got this schedule right here. We are starting. Day 1 is, load for me, please, February 8th. So
February 8th. So
New York.
Not next week, but the Saturday of the week after is when we're starting. So
about 3 weeks.
Yeah, roughly 3 weeks. So we'll have next week's episode, which I forget what we're doing, and then no. Okay, next week's episode is the full preseason. Preseason's over now. We're going to talk about the entirety of it. We're going to talk about the entirety of it, go through power rankings and all that stuff. The week after, that's just week 1. That's week 1, episode 1.
Week in preview, who's doing what, who's when and where.
Yep. Who is when and who is where, who's playing what, and all that good stuff. And we're I mean, not next week, but the week after, we're back in the regular season and doing episodes like that. So stick around. Now's a great time to come back. You can listen to the past 5 episodes and hear all of our thoughts on all of the teams. We've finally gotten through all of them. But yes, we're getting rapidly closer to the beginning of the season. But before we go, Kyle, any sellout shout-outs, anything that you want to give before we head out?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Kyle the Winner. Check out the Blackwatch Report. We're recording tomorrow at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 Eastern. Yeah, we're talking some fun contenders-y stuff. Come drink in the knowledge of of being the guy in your team of your friend group who can be like, actually, well, this player is going to be actually a huge surprise for this team, so you should really not rate them that low because actually
neckbeard, love it.
Exactly. That is what we're creating. No, real talk. It is going to be fun. I'm hoping we're going to get some cool, interesting interviews with some new players here.
Ooh.
We'll see how it goes. We have some interesting things we want to discuss with some possible guests. So I'm hoping we can make something happen with that. But I'm not going to promise anything. It's going to be cool.
It's going to be great. Make sure you check that out for sure. But that is going to be it, everyone. Thank you for listening. You can check us out. All our stuff at highnoonpodcast.com. You can also check out Twitter, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere that you want to find us. We're High Noon Podcast everywhere. Make sure you're leaving us iTunes reviews, all that good stuff. Spotify, any of that good junk. But that is going to be it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. For Kyle Wynn, I am the Lovins. And remember, it's High Noon.
His hat, he threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
For the San Antonio Cinderhawks, the second baseman, Kyle Wynn.